So our organization, I think most of you know, was founded on August 29th, 1981. And I refer to compañera Kathy again because she said, you know, talk about how that day was. And it was a day just like this, and it was an afternoon. It was in the evening, early evening, and it was a hot summer day, okay, just like this. So I find that important, you know. So on August 29th, 1981, a handful of us that got together in a house in a Mexican community called Barrio Logan in San Diego. And we met there and we formed Unión Del Barrio. But even though it was only 5, maybe 6 of us, all of us had a lot of history already in struggle. Most of us had at least 10 years of involvement. Some actually had more than 10 years. So that means that there were what we called veterans of the last period of struggle. They were veterans of what we call the Chicano power movement of the late 60s and early 70s. All of us had some kind of experience. Some of us had came out of the Raza Unida party. Some of us had came out of the Brown Berets. Some of us had come out of Mecha. Some of us have come out of MAPA. Some of us that came out of the Chicano Park Steering Committee, which is the group responsible for taking over Chicano Park in 1970 in San Diego. And all of us had came out of a group called the Committee on Chicano Rights. Okay. It was also a period, 1981, where there was no longer a movement. By 1975, real mass struggle in the United States did no longer exist. And by 1981, everybody, or almost everybody, was into what I guess today we call Hispanic type of politics, reformism, okay? All the old activists that I knew from the 70s were now teachers, lawyers, etc. You know, and they still, you know, were nice people, but they were no longer active, okay? So I bring that up because it was not an easy period. In fact, people thought we were crazy, okay? People thought like, that kind of politics is no longer in existence. What are you doing? We have to now register people to vote. We have to run somebody for governor. We have to work within the system, okay? We're talking about people who used to call themselves revolutionaries, people who used to say they were Marxist, people who used to say they were Maoists. We're going around saying that. So it was a real difficult period. At our first meeting, we began to develop some principles of unity, okay? And we came up with 5 basic principles of unity, and it took a couple of meetings to come up with these. One is that we wanted to create an organization of organizers, okay? This is important. We didn't want an organization of leaders. We didn't want an organization of theoreticians. We didn't want an organization of speakers. We wanted an organization of organizers. We also wanted to organize a group that would uphold the importance of culture and history. That we felt that history was super important, that we understood that people without culture were not going to struggle. And we also understood that a people without history were going to be doomed to doing the same mistakes of the past. And we wrote that down, okay, that we wanted to do that. We also wanted to create a group that was going to give power to the community, that we were going to do our work in the community, that we were going to exist in the community, that the heart of our nation was the community. And the last thing we said, that our organization was going to be based on the concept of raza self-determination, the liberation of our nation, and not just the people, but the land too. As to our name, Unión del Barrio, I don't know how many have read the history of our group or discussed it, but we got the word unión because it meant unity. You know, and we understood that, like compañero Harry said earlier, that the highest expression of unity is organization. So unión means to us unity. But another thing about unión, it also means a labor or a workers' organization. And since we wanted to work with the masses of people, which were workers, we thought, hey, that covers that part too. So unión sounded good to us. Okay. The other word, barrio. Barrio means community. And again, it clicked on us. That's what we're trying to do, is organize the community. And that's where our work was going to be. That was the center of our community, the barrio. So that's how we came up with Unión del Barrio. Now, we didn't invent it. This is important because, again, this thing of I is we have to struggle against that. We have to combat that. There was a book called the Chicano Manifesto, written by Armando Rendon. And on it, he talks about barrio unions. Okay? And we didn't think about it, but somebody in that room must have read that book and then used that word, because I don't think it just came out, you know, out of nowhere. But that's where the word Unión del Barrio, or the name, came from. Now, as to our eagle, why did we choose the eagle, or the Eagle Night? One, it represented what we believe we are, which is indigenous people. It represents indigenismo. So the Eagle Night, that's what it represented. But again, it's just more than just one thing. It also was something that comes out of our struggle. And if you notice that a lot of the raza organizations in the occupied territories use the eagle as a symbol. Okay? The United Farm Workers use the eagle. The Committee on Chicano Rights, which we came from, used the eagle. Mecha used the eagle. So it was part of that creating or continuing that tradition of using symbols that are important to our community. The colors that we have, which are black and red. How do we come up with that? Again, it's nothing that we invented. It came up from what we saw in Mexico and Latin America. It represented the workers, the unions, the strikes, resistance, socialism, okay? So we chose these two colors, and that's where Unión del Barrio and the colors come from. And I don't know how many people know that, but it's important to do that and understand that, because it sets the tone for the rest of the work that we did. A lot of people ask us, why did all of a sudden these years did Unión del Barrio start developing ideologically, okay? And we point to three things, because these three things still exist, and I saw it today. One was that we were always having internal discussions, or what people call political education. And this naturally leads you to knowing or learning different things. The other one is pláticas with other groups, like La Raza Unida Party, the MLN, which was the Movimiento Liberación Nacional, and also with, again, our contact with the African People's Socialist Party. And, you know, we're always up front. That's one of the things that's also, I think, a unique quality of the Unión. We're always up front of who we are and where we get everything. And we can honestly say that the organization that had the most influence on us ideologically was the African People's Socialist Party. We began to have pláticas with their leadership, their chairman, Omali Yeshitela. And we began to attend their events, and they started attending our events. And we began to see how much we really had in common. So we began to, you know, struggle with them, and we began to learn a lot. And towards the end of that period, we began to identify our struggle as something calling for what we call dual and contending power, which meant that we wanted to not wait till we got rid of gringo colonialism, but that we start organizing institutions that bring liberation to our people, that we don't have to wait, okay? So we began to think about forming a centro with an office and a bookstore and things for the youngsters, etc. That we began to form associations of different peoples so that we can do work, etc., and compete with what the system was having out there. We began to sum up and see our work clearly something against colonialism and neocolonialism. And neocolonialism simply is the vendidos that exist, right? That's all it is, okay? And we finally said, now's the time to form Vanguard, and we have a meeting to begin the process in Riverside. And that led us to our first Congress, which we had in 1997, which is another period in our history. And we hold our first Congress in January of 1997, and people say, well, so what? It was historical. It was historical, first of all, for our organization, and it was historical for the history of Raza, because it contributed to the political history of Raza on this side of the border, because there's very few organizations made up of Raza who have held congresses where revolutionary organization was discussed. So, okay. Sometimes some of our history is positive, like I said, sometimes it's negative, but you inherit it. So you're not only speaking for yourself or for a person of a certain age, you're speaking for 26 years of struggle and more. Because when we founded Unión Del Barrio, we had already had years of struggle. So we provided that continuity instead of people having to reinvent the wheel. So we provide this continuity to the present generations. The other thing I think is important is that we have, in a small way, but in an important way, contributed to the science of struggle, okay? We have used a lot of what, Lenin and Stalin and Mao and Che and Ho Chi Minh. And if you ever see some of our presentations that we make, and if you ever read articles in La Verdad, you'll see our references that the things that we're saying came out of revolutionaries such as Frantz Fanon, okay? And it's not something that we just made up. So we made that contribution in the sense that we have brought that up to people today, okay? Because what a lot of the revolutionaries in the past said is valid today, okay? So we have contributed to that, and we have applied it to our reality, okay? And it works, because if you ever sit and talk to us, you'll see that you might not agree with us, but we make sense, okay? Now, lessons to be learned real quick, like one is organization's everything. We say, like Ho Chi Minh said, without organization, you're nothing. Nothing. I don't care who you are. I don't care how bad you are, how good looking you are, you're nothing without an organization. So we learned that. The other one is that we need a disciplined organization, not just any organization. We need a disciplined organization and an organization that's committed and that's willing to sacrifice. That is something we learned. We also learned that democratic centralism is necessary, okay? We need to make a decision, and everybody has to follow the decision once it's made. But there's people that do that. They go to meetings, and after 5 hours of struggle, and after everybody makes a decision, the next day they're doing something completely different, okay? You can't do that, okay? You can't be in a revolution and do that. We also learned that we have to combat liberalism among us, okay? And liberalism means just not taking things seriously, okay? A lot of people are very liberal about the things they do. The other one, that neocolonialism is still a major tool of oppression, okay? And that term was invented or first raised over 50 years ago, and every time I hear it, it's just so clear. And again, neo-colonialists are the vendidos. The other thing I think that's important that we learn is consistent struggle. Okay, sometimes you go to a meeting and only the two Mirnas show up, you know? You don't cancel the meeting because of that. You still have the meeting. Okay, you have to be consistent. Because once you start canceling things, once you start not coming through, then people are not going to respect you, and people are going to start questioning you. What has allowed the Unión to exist? One is our principle that we're organization of organizers. You know, as simple as I said when we started, remember I said that that's one of the first things we decided to do? As simple and as, you know, logical, you know, that's what kept us going. That we did not believe in individuals, that we wanted organizers. So we thought, or we know that that's what helps us, because that allows for criticism, self-criticism, that allows for democracy, that allows for people to having a voice and not one person manipulating. So that was super important. The other thing I think that kept us going is that we learned from other movement organizations. We learned from CASA. We learned from La Raza Unida Party. We learned from the Berets. We learned from Mecha. We learned, okay? We're like a sum total of all these other organizations, okay? So we learned from our movement. But if I had to say what would have been the most valuable lesson is what I consider a real revolutionary, the understanding, coming to an understanding that the most important virtues of a revolutionary, of a person who wants change, is one, being honest, understanding that, and the other one, understanding or being humble. If you're honest and humble, you become a great revolutionary. If you're not honest or humble, I don't care what you do. You can write books, but nobody will ever remember you, and you will not have an impact and struggle. And through talking to people, right, those are one of the things that I've learned the most. And I try to explain that to people, that, I'd rather take a humble person anytime, because they can learn everything else, than to have an arrogant SOB, man, that will never learn and just constantly just be an obstacle to people's struggles. And you've seen that. You go to a meeting and the issue is good, right? The issue is, hey man, yeah, I support that issue. But you start seeing some of those arrogant people there that don't listen to others. They just talk, and pretty soon you don't want to come back. So instead of helping the liberation process, these people are actually hindering it or stopping it. So I would say, what makes somebody a real activist, what makes somebody a revolutionary, which is understanding or coming to the conclusions that honesty and humbleness are the most important things. And you know what? That's not to say I'm always honest. I've lied. That's not to say I'm always humble. But I'm saying what I think, okay? Something that we should strive for. And I think all of us understand what I'm saying. That is the most important thing. And you can really, really work with somebody that's like that. It's when you start seeing that dishonesty, right? See,
you ever think of retiring?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I think of retiring every day. Okay? And, if you tell me or show me somebody that says that they don't wish they could retire, then again, they're being dishonest. Because, struggle shouldn't be fun. Struggle should be a sacrifice, okay? You struggle with people. Struggle is extremely difficult, okay? Struggle is probably the most difficult thing there is. When I say struggle, I'm saying trying to change things politically, trying to change things economically. It's super struggle. If it was easy, we would have won a long time ago, right? But it's not. It's not, and it's easier to give up, okay? Retirement to me means giving up, okay? If you give up, then all those things we've said the last 26 to 30 years means what? You know, like I said, the only thing you have is organization. The only thing I have is organization. I'm a teacher, but not because I was smarter than the other camaradas in the barrio. I became a teacher because of the movement, because of organization. It was the movement, it was organization that gave me the opportunity and the tools to be a teacher and survive, okay? So if I was to retire, I would be giving up. And giving up, you know, it's almost like selling out, okay? But no, I can't give up, I can't retire in that way, you know what I mean? I have to continue in some way be involved in struggle because I owe everything to struggle. That's who I am, okay? And I think every human being should be that way.